Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Marshall Miller. I am with the University Career Center here at KU, and this is our Beyond KU panel series where we try and bring fantastic individuals like we have here today to tell you a little bit about their different job journeys. And our topic today is on Beyond KU Careers with Roots, Ecology, Nature, and Food Systems. If you are watching this live, either on Facebook Live or YouTube, feel free to comment with questions and I will see them pop up in our chat here and we will try and get to them if we have time. So without any further ado, I want to get to our panelists. Courtney Masterson, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Courtney. As Marshall said, I am an ecologist and I own and operate my own restoration ecology business. So I get to, oh, kitty, I get to work in public land and work with volunteers to restore native plants and ecosystems to our landscape that is accessible and educational.
Wonderful. I'm going to go next in line. Becky, you are next. Tell us a little about who you are and what you do.
Hi, everyone. My name is Becky Harpstreit. I am the VP of Marketing for several food brands. So I actually work for a company called VG Growth Partners, but it started out about 10 years ago when I helped co-found a brand called Hillary's, which is a veggie burger company that was founded by a woman named Hillary who had a restaurant here in Lawrence called Local Burger, excuse me. And so now I manage all aspects of marketing for 3 different brands, and they're all common allergen free and vegan. So that's just a little bit. I have a background in art and graphic design, but that's not really what I do today. So.
Awesome. Well, full disclosure, my wife is a huge fan of the Hillary's Burger Chef's Kiss. Next, we have Emily. Emily, tell us who you are, what you do.
Hi, I'm Emily Lyson, and I'm the Director of Development for the Lawrence Farmers Market. It's a brand new position as of January of this year. It's our first full-time position at the Farmers Market. So what my role is to help promote and advertise and network and make connections to help increase our customer base for the farmers market. And so I help to run a nonprofit that encompasses about 65 small businesses, whether that's farmers, producers, things like that. I'm also in charge of our long-term planning committee, which what we do is we're working to find a new permanent location for the farmers market. So I do a lot of city commission, county commission meetings and doing kind of networking things. Also, my background not in this at all either. I actually worked at Local Burger long ago, and my background is primarily in garden education, actually.
Awesome. Well, close us out. Zach, tell us a little about who you are and what you do.
Hey, Marshall and virtual audience. Thanks for having me. My name is Zach Hoppenstead. I currently am a horticulture extension agent with Kansas State University, although I studied at KU and at K-State, and based in the Johnson County office. So for folks that maybe are not familiar with what the Extension Service does, really it's historically was a component of how land grant or state universities got their funding. Not only so that they could conduct research and provide education to students, but also get out into the community, take the research, primarily agricultural and food related research out into the sort of disparate or geographically diverse communities within the state. Obviously in Johnson County, one of the most populous counties and urban counties, agriculture looks a little bit different, but in my role as a horticulture extension agent, working with fruit and vegetable crops. So both commercial and consumer audiences, providing technical assistance and education around how to grow vegetables at home, how to produce more fresh produce in our community.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, I want to hear a little bit more about what drew y'all to this field. And, Becky and Emily, you both mentioned this isn't how you started, so anyone can jump in, but what drew you to this field?
I can start there. So I was actually so I graduated from an art institute with a degree in graphic design, and then I started attending KU. And while I was attending KU, I began working as a designer for KU Dining Services. So it was there that I actually fell kind of in love with this idea of food marketing, right? Because I love food, and I loved like food photography. It was something that I didn't know that I loved. And so when I was approached to help start this company, the veggie burger company Hillary's by Hillary, I honestly had no idea what I was getting into. I didn't know anything about the food industry. I had some marketing experience. I was working as a freelance designer, but really everything was on the creative side of things. So I had to, over the years, really teach myself all of the other side of it, right? The data analysis, the budgeting, the leadership and management parts of it. So, but what's kept me with this company for so long was this kind of incredible vision that we had at the beginning, which was to kind of change the food system, right? We wanted to create products that didn't have just the same ingredients. Like you go into a grocery store today and there's the same, I don't know, 100 ingredients in almost every single product, right? So we really wanted to bring in biodiversity into that system because we know how important that is to any thriving ecosystem, right? So my personal passions for prairies and native plants, I have a big prairie garden in my front yard, which Courtney helps me with. So those personal passions have really kept me with this brand for so long, and have kept me going in a challenging environment. So
Awesome. Well, I want to cut off real quick. We have Jasmine Moore, who is able to join us. Jasmine, thank you so much for being here. We're really excited to have you. I'm going to call on you right up front, just since we didn't get a chance to introduce you. Do you mind telling us a little bit about who you are and what you do? And if you want, you can tell us what brought you to your current position.
Sure thing. Thanks for having me. I'm Jasmine Moore. I'm the Sustainability Director for the City of Lawrence and Douglas County, Kansas. And also, this was not a career that I knew even existed because it didn't when I was in undergrad. So I came to this field from the perspective of public health and built environment, and how the way that we interact with the land and what we do with our land has a direct impact on the health choices that we make as people. And so that's where my passion came. And so my background and training is actually in community and regional planning and urban planning. And so looking at the built environment, specifically how we use land use practices, how we decide what is appropriate to put in different places in our communities, and how that interacts with public health. And so if you think about we want to encourage people to walk more, get more exercise, but if they don't have a safe way to do that in their community, they don't have sidewalks, or there's too much traffic, or there's dogs running around, then it will be very difficult for someone to make that choice to walk because it's not safe. And so those are the types of things that have contributed to my career path. And my connection with sustainability really came about in the last 10 years or so. And I've been fortunate enough to work for local governments in Arkansas and Kansas to promote environmental sustainability, as well as equity and racial equity, and how that plays into the environmental justice aspect of our work.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again for being here. Really excited to have you. And so I want to go back to the question that Jasmine just kind of talked about, of what drew you to your role. We heard from Becky. Do any other of you want to jump in, tell us how you landed here? What kind of made you navigate this way?
I'll go. So my background is actually in environmental science. And so I initially went into restoration ecology work, and I only did that for like a short summer season. And I saw it was just like not that rewarding. It was kind of after doing manual labor for 3 months, everything had kind of popped back up. And I was also living on an organic cherry farm at the time. And growing up in Kansas, I had never considered like small scale farming as an option in my life. I didn't have farming background at all. And I saw how like placing food in the environment as you remove weeds or remove an invasive plant or remove something, but you put back something that you want and is desirable instead of just removing. I saw how beneficial that could be. And so I switched into foods. And then I eventually started working in restaurants doing local foods, and then on farms doing foods. And so really got into the farm to table movement and just saw like that kind of build up and just did work all over and kind of moved all over the country and just learned as much as I could and really got into food and just became really obsessed with local foods. And then so, again, what Jasmine said is I had no idea this role existed. I didn't even know this role existed when I applied to the farmer's market. I applied for a market manager part-time position that was just like helping run the market. And they had created this position with grant funding to help move forward the market. So again, just, you go out there and do what you can, go, learn as much as you can and try different things. And eventually you'll find a role that kind of fits all of the different like things and parts about you. And you'll go, oh man, this role was created for me and this is awesome.
I
can probably.
go ahead,
sorry.
Zach.
Go ahead.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Zach, go ahead, and then we'll
Okay.
let Courtney finish us out.
Really quickly, just because I can relate to a lot of what Emily said, I thought it might be good to follow up on. Growing up in Manhattan, Kansas, I think maybe most folks that grow up more in Lawrence, greater metro area or the Kansas City area, think of Manhattan as being sort of a cow town, and that. And some people even refer to it as Western Kansas. And when you have experience working throughout the whole state, like I do, you realize that the western half of the state doesn't see it that way. But I would still consider myself a city kid growing up. I grew up in town. My grandparents had farmland, but had mostly phased out of living on the farm. And agriculture didn't really seem like something that I was interested in, even growing up in a town with sort of a very nationally recognized school of agriculture, college of agriculture. And looking back on that, I don't know if that was a failure for me to not recognize the opportunity, or just maybe in some cases, I do think that the dichotomy in between the community in a college town and the institution itself. There's obviously sometimes not as great of a connection as you'd like there to be. But anyway, and then just looking at my undergraduate background, probably not what you would expect. I studied Spanish at KU and ended up going into the Peace Corps. And was in a very rural agrarian community in Guatemala. So it took me leaving Manhattan, Kansas, and going to Central America to kind of pick up on the value of agriculture and the potential for that to be a career focus moving forward. And if I went through all of the different leaps and bounds that I took professionally from that point on, we'd be here for way too long. But yeah, just getting exposure in fields, getting hands-on experience in the work that you want to do, just figuring out, I still feel like I'm trying to figure out what it is that makes me happy and what I like to do. And that's, I think, probably an ongoing process for most people. But, once you start to figure out some of those things that spark joy, maybe I've been watching too much Marie Kondo, but then you'll get experience. And even if it's not something that's that was a part of your degree program, there's a lot of potential to find employment in those fields.
Awesome. Courtney, tell us what drew you to this field.
Well, I find a lot in common with everyone, as everyone has said. I think we all find our own path to this, and so rarely is it direct. But I was an artist. and have some commercial art degrees, and I have a lot of years of photography and mixed media art study under my belt. And it was really my art that inspired me to get into saving the world. Is the way I felt, what I felt like I was doing back then. But my art became very environmentally charged and sort of dark, honestly. I'll have to share with my friends on this call sometime, but really reflected what I was seeing in the world of, environmental destruction and loss of habitat. And I didn't even understand what those things meant, right? I didn't have the vocabulary to say what I needed to say, but I was able to produce art that reflected what I was seeing in the world. And, I was raised on, the Lorax and Disney movies and the earliest environmental documentaries, and, progressive rock music that was all about loving everyone. So it was sort of ingrained in my blood in the first place. But when I went after a career that would allow me to put my boots on the ground and make a difference, I ended up in research, and then I ended up working for nonprofits, and then ultimately decided that what I wanted to do as a career didn't exist. So I would start a business to do it myself. It's a long story, but I'm really grateful to be able to say that we've been able to make a living. I can keep a roof over my head, working with the community and restoring landscapes. And everyone on these calls is making a huge difference in their own way. I'm excited to talk to you all.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And once again, if there's anyone who is watching live as we're filming this, feel free to drop comments in the chat, either on YouTube or Facebook Live, and we will try and get to them. So a couple of y'all mentioned how you had no idea your current positions even existed before you walked into them. And so I'm curious, either whether it's ones you found or people constantly ask you about, but what are some of the common misconceptions that you find that either you had or other people have about the work that you do? And I'll open this up to anyone.
I'll start. So sustainability, oftentimes the first thing people think of is recycling. And so I get a lot of questions about recycling and where people can take their big TVs. And we actually have a whole team of folks in our solid waste division that do all of that and are experts in recycling and waste streams. And they're amazing. And they're known like throughout the state for their expertise. So I think that's one big misconception, is that recycling is a big part of sustainability, when in fact that, waste and what we do with our waste is a part of the conversation, but it's not a huge focus of our office because we have staff that focus specifically on that aspect.
I don't have anything to say because for whatever reason, my job, I think it's because I invented it, that there's not a lot of misconception about what I do. And we're really out, in people's faces about what we do, which is the intention of the work. Very educational and community oriented stuff. But I'm going to ask somebody. So Zach, I work with extension agents all the time, but so you're a horticulture extension agent. I, as someone who works with them all the time, what differentiates your position from other sort of extension positions?
I think traditionally you'll have, like, in some very small counties, maybe 1 or 2 agents. In Johnson County, we have 8 agents. You'll have programs like the 4-H program, which is a youth development education program that's been historically a major component of extension. And then usually a standard role would be an ag agent. And generally an ag agent is going to be focused on livestock and commodity production, row crops, soybeans, corn, barley, sorghum, those types of things. Whereas horticulture is usually focused more on the landscape or what we call specialty crops. So edible crops that are more perishable, produce items. USDA has a definition on what those crops are, but the horticulture agent usually responds to fruit and vegetable production related questions. 95% of the inquiries and work that I do is with what I would call a consumer audience. So a homeowner, a backyard gardener, or orchardist. I really do strive on trying to maintain some relevancy and working with industry as well. So like this past weekend, we just had a fairly large field day where we presented on some research that we'd been doing with commercial orchards in Baldwin City, actually in collaboration with Douglas County.
Taylor Creek.
Probably one of the largest orchards in the state right now is South Baldwin Farms.
Oh, cool.
There in Douglas County.
Yeah.
So, question, hopefully that Courtney answered your question somewhat. And I think in terms of just misconceptions, that we're trying to carry out some sort of new biotechnology or bring GMOs or, whatever people think is the cutting edge technology that the university is aligned with. And in some cases, there is really some fantastic research that's going on at the main campus in Manhattan. But a lot of what we do as extension agents is community work, building relationships with people and trying to get them information to pursue a variety of different projects. It's very grassroots at its core. It definitely has a bend of botany and some sort of being an expert on in sort of a technical subject like growing plants, but it is a lot of just relationship building, much like I'm sure a lot of our roles are.
That's awesome. Any other misconceptions that y'all discovered when you entered your positions?
I think what I do is very different than I think a lot of people here. And I think it's really interesting that until I was inside the food industry and specifically the natural product industry, I thought that it would be really easy to make a lot of money. And especially when we first started, but it's like food companies do not make a lot of money. So the way that the model works is that we sell to a distributor or multiple distributors, and then those distributors sell to grocery stores. But then food companies also have to go to the grocery stores to pay them to put products on the shelf, pay for all the promotions, pay for all of, the couponing. So we have to basically pay the grocery stores and the distributors, and we're selling for a much lower price than what, everybody's taking their margin, right? So when we get people who kind of write to us and they're, the thing that we got a lot, and it makes it very challenging, is that, people have this conception that our food is very expensive. Well, when you consider that, number one, we're, selling to a middleman who's then selling it to a store. Number two, high quality ingredients are more expensive. It costs us money to buy those products. It costs us money to get the certifications behind them. We have to pay the FDA to come out and do inspections. We have to pay, certifying bodies. We have to pay for, certifications for our facility to make sure that they're up to standard. And then you add in paying your workers a living wage, right? You have labor costs, you have packaging costs. So when you take all of that into account, it's incredibly challenging to create an actual sustainable, like visionary product, right? That doesn't cost a ton of money. So we get it a lot from customers. Why are you so expensive? We really are not. And we're in line with a lot of products that are using really, so it takes a lot of money in this industry to make money. We've been in business for 10 years and last year, our first profitable year. And it was like that much profit.
Congratulations on a profitable year. That's really good, though. I know it took a long time. You deserve it.
It took a very long time. Yes.
Well, that's awesome.
Marshall, I don't know.
Go ahead.
If you want to respond to that question in the chat about local
we're gonna get
or if that'll
we're gonna get
derail
to
us
that in
too
just
much.
we're gonna get that to that in
Okay.
just a little bit. I appreciate it. So one thing that one of the great things about the series that we do, I think, is that we try and pull y'all represent such a different variety of backgrounds and industries: government, private business, local business, nonprofit. Y'all have complete range of job titles. I'm curious, what sort of skills do you find are necessary to work in your sort of position? And I'm not necessarily talking about a background. I'm talking about, a skill, whether it's something intrinsic, like something like work ethic or communication, whatever the case may be. But when you think about what you do, and so the kind of work that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, what stands out to you as saying like, hey, students who are thinking about this is something that you might want to work on or build up or practice if you're trying to get into this field?
I can start if you guys want. What I always tell the young folks, we do a lot of internships and mentoring, especially of college students, but also of high school students. And I think that the thing that most aided me in my career search was volunteer work. And it's great that someone's already asking, how can you get involved? I'll have a lot of ways for you to get involved in our work, and I know everybody else here does too. If you don't know what you want to do, but you want to save the world, I think a lot of young people and people my age and people older than me are still looking for a way to contribute to making the world a better place. Volunteer work's a really great way to use your existing skill set or learn a new skill set to make a difference.
Courtney, that was amazing. I didn't even think about that background of mine, how that built up the skills, but also just like the networking is what I was going to say. So networking and communication skills are super important. And that was pretty much why I was hired for my role, was like the ability to talk to people and make those connections and just build upon that. It's like, I don't have a background in advertising or promotions or marketing at all. But my the ability to talk to people and pass the word on about local food and build up that momentum is really what it's about. I mean, I'm sure my background in farming and cooking local foods definitely helps. Like, I can know the seasonability of things and I know how hard farmers work and things like that. But it's the skills that you're going to gain, like you'll either have or you'll gain in other things that are going to make you a marketable person and like and hireable as well.
I was just going to build off of that, Emily, because I think you had some really great points about whatever job you have. I'm just thinking like some of the best customer service people work in restaurants. And so whatever your job is right now, if you don't feel like it's directly connected to where you want to be, there's probably some skills that you have that are very valuable to the position that you may have one day. And so I was going to say relationship building, which is right in line with what Emily talked about. And so networking is one way to think about it. Another way is, just building relationships with people that are doing work that you're interested in, or in your current work, just the skill set of being able to talk to people and maintain a relationship with people is something that's really key to the work that I do. And so I would say, relationship building, having that reliability is another big thing. And so if you are volunteering for an organization, if you say you're going to be there, show up. If you're not available, let people know. And so those little things that don't seem that big of a deal are really key to maintaining those relationships, because you never know when a position might open up for the place that you've been volunteering at, and they might remember those times that you said you were going to show up and you didn't. And that will have an impact on whether you might get the job or not. So those were a few things that I wanted to build on.
I would add to that, there's, and maybe it's because, I feel like I didn't know what I was doing when I started, and I've just taught myself all of this over the years. But I really look for people who have kind of like I'm going to figure this out attitude, right? Like I have so many different projects and so many different people coming to me, and I really need people to be able to try to figure it out before they bring it to me. So, teach yourself things and don't be afraid of failing. I've definitely seen that over the years where people are a little bit too hesitant to do anything because they're like, I don't know how to do this. And it's like, none of us know how to do anything. Like we all just figure it out, So really just dive in and dig in and, try. And if you fail, like I'm personally as a manager, like I would rather see you fail than not try. So I can handle the failure part.
I think that's just such a good point, Becky, is to like just don't be afraid to like just try stuff. Try different things, go, push yourself to try something new and to like, go above what you think that you're qualified for. Like after I graduated with my bachelor's, my advisors constantly were like, apply for jobs that ask for master's, because you never know. And like, especially if you have a lot of skill set and a lot of experience volunteering and doing a wide variety of things, you're gonna be a more well-rounded candidate for something than maybe somebody who is only done school and just got their master's.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. So I'm curious, and once again, thank you for those of you who are posting in the comments. We're going to try and get to those at the end. There are a couple more I want to get through first. I'm curious, what are some of the biggest challenges y'all face in your roles? What are the things that push you, that are really hard, and maybe just things that, you don't know what you don't know. And so that's something we always get asked about with students. So I'm curious how y'all would weigh in on that. What are some of the largest challenges of working in your job and in the industry?
The weather, I'd say.
Same.
both for like at market and getting product to market. People really wanted their peaches this year, and the entire Kansas crop of peaches was completely destroyed. So, by the weather. And so for at least, my role in general, my business, weather is a big part of it.
I would agree with weather, and I'm going to add that, I can't speak for everyone, but for nonprofits and folks like us who are sort of education-based organizations, funding is always something we have to spend time going after, and that grant writing is one of those things you could volunteer to help and learn that skill set, not just us but everyone. So kind of the paycheck to paycheck thing for us is difficult, but I know that this is cliche, but I can honestly say my heart is very full every night when I go to bed. So there's money isn't everything, but I can pay my mortgage, so I'm not complaining.
For me, I would say that one of the biggest challenges is that sustainability is never an emergency. So sustainability is all about the long game, and what are we doing? How are we interacting with systems? How can we improve these systems for the good of the future? So it's very future oriented, which is sometimes challenging when there is an immediate other disaster that's happening. And so the important but not urgent nature of sustainability is sometimes challenging when there is an important and urgent matter in front of you. I will say that we know that climate change is an urgent issue, but people can't see it every day. And so that is the challenge. So I think we saw some similarities with COVID. At the beginning of COVID, everybody saw it as an immediate urgent issue. But now that we've been in pandemic for so long, it's really difficult for some people to see it still as an urgent issue. So I see a lot of similarities with the topic and work of sustainability and climate work as well.
Well said. Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say another
Yeah.
hard part with like local food sales in general, especially like around the pandemic, is like ease of access to getting that food. Is like you have to come to the farmers market. It's early because farmers are up early and we are like a pop-up thing. So it's not always in people's minds. They can't drive by. And that's partially why we're working on finding a permanent location, but they're not driving by seeing, oh, there's a market every day. It's, oh, I can easily just go to the grocery store at any time in the day. I can get things delivered from Amazon, from Walmart, whatever. But that transition to like getting out there, supporting that local business, it's, I'd say that's a hard part of my job, is getting those misconceptions of parking and hours and price points all down.
I guess I was going to chime in maybe like a little bit more holistically, saying, it's as an educator, at the core of what my responsibilities are. I think the imposter syndrome, or feeling like you're not an expert enough on the subject, can really be stressful. And I haven't totally figured that out yet, but I think, something that I learned at KU, living on my own for the first time, I think it's really easy to get into bad habits when you don't have necessarily mom or dad that are over the top of you, trying to create that structure for you. If that's, I wouldn't actually say that was something that my parents did a lot either, to be honest. But, I think what I ultimately kind of figured out during that period of undergrad was there were certain sort of routines and things that I could accomplish on a daily or weekly basis, that like trying to feel proud of something that I was doing every day, whether it was, committing myself to my studies, or, committing to some sort of like just getting outside and getting some exercise, like hopefully finishing each day feeling proud of something that you're doing, feeling accomplished, and putting together a routine like that, I think really does go a long way with your confidence. And even when you're put in situations where maybe you don't know all the answers, I think it prepares you to handle it with grace and honesty, and to be more authentic.
Zach, I love that answer. I mean, I think, interestingly enough, I almost didn't do this panel because of imposter syndrome. I totally have that feeling almost every single day, where it's like, no, you guys don't understand. I'm not really doing this. But you take a step back and you really are doing it, and you are very capable of doing that. And, one of the things is that I'm intimidated by the work that you guys do, because I feel like it's so much more meaningful than running a food company, right? But I think that part of that stems from the challenge that I was going to address, which is that, like, a lot of times what I struggle with is that, we founded a company with a very specific vision to change the food system, which is a big vision, right? And when it gets down to like the nitty gritty of it, it's like, as an example, when we first started, we really wanted to use a lot of local ingredients. So we contracted with a local farmer. We got them organic certified. They were growing root vegetables for us. And then when it came down to it, we couldn't afford to have our people peeling those potatoes and cutting them. I mean, CPG food, like consumer packaged good food products, have to be consistent. So consumers are expecting the same size potatoes in every single product, and the same, consistency in the way that we cook millet, and all of these kind of things. So we have a ton of challenges trying to get local ingredients. Either they're not, certified by local agencies, or they're not showing up to us in a way that we can use them efficiently. Or the price is way too high, because a lot of labor goes into food, and that's completely understandable, but it's also kind of disheartening, because when you have a specific vision that you want to change the world, like Courtney said earlier, And then when it gets into the weeds of it, you have to buy potatoes that have been grown in Georgia, processed in Washington, flown back to Kansas, and then that product has to go to Iowa before it ends up on the shelf at the Merc. So distribution of all of these items is a really big factor into that.
Absolutely. Well, I do want to once again say, Becky, we're super glad you're here, and we're super glad that you're all here. This has been really interesting insight, especially for someone who isn't as familiar with y'all's industry. So at the very least, I'm getting to learn a lot. We are inching towards the end because y'all have been so generous with your time. So I do want to call on the question that was submitted by Wendy. So I'm going to limit y'all to just one. I am sure that y'all could talk for hours and hours on different local area experiences that students could get involved in. But whether you touched on volunteering, grant writing, if you want to reemphasize one of those, but what is something maybe tangible, either in the local area or not necessarily, that you would recommend to students if they're interested in the type of work that you do? Or maybe it's something that would help them stand apart from others who are trying to kind of get their foot in this door. But when you're framed with that question, share something that comes to mind.
I think you all know that we have a lot of volunteer opportunities. I'm not going to talk about a lot of them, but if you'd like to see a list of how you can come to one of our volunteer work days, which include restorations kind of all over Douglas County and soon Shawnee County and hopefully some Johnson County ones. We're doing DeSoto tonight. Get on our social media, but we keep the Facebook page most updated because I'm old. And our Facebook for native lands is facebook.com/fortheprairie. But just put in Native Lands LLC and you'll find us. And we have partnerships with other nonprofits and we all host different work days. But it's the easiest way to find us.
I would say for the farmers market, we have tons of opportunities. If you're interested in working on farms, you can go to our website and I think we have about 10 different farms that are hiring currently. If you want to do part-time work, full-time work, we have a lot of different opportunities, whether that's from doing picking chestnuts to helping in a bakery to helping on a farm. We also have volunteer opportunities, but mainly we will be hiring another market manager eventually. And that's like a part-time role. It's great for students. It's Saturday mornings and then Tuesday evenings. And we occasionally also hire assistants for that as well, which just help out on Saturday mornings. And we have 2 KU students right now doing that, and it's great.
For me, if folks are interested in a conversation about climate change and what we can be doing in Douglas County and the city of Lawrence, we are just starting a climate action plan and the development of a climate action plan. So you can go to lawrenceks.org/climate and you can see the beginnings of our climate action plan development. We are looking for people all over the community in Douglas County to have conversations with people that they already know. So if you are willing to have a conversation around the dinner table or in your dorm or with if you're on a club team, anybody that you work with, we are looking for you to start those conversations and then give us some feedback about what you all talked about and what you think is most important for us to be focusing on in Douglas County when it comes to reducing our greenhouse gas emissions, as well as climate is changing in our community. What can we be doing to adapt to it? So that would be really helpful. And if you're interested in how government works and in public administration, we have a ton of different advisory boards that people are welcome to attend at any time, and there's opportunities to get involved in those as well.
Well, I guess I would be remiss if I didn't mention your guys' county extension office there at the fairgrounds, which is sort of, I guess, on the outskirts of town as you get on to K10. But you guys have a fantastic horticulture agent there, a graduate of KU. His name is Tom Buller, and he was a farmer and sold at Lawrence Farmers Market for many years, and maybe is still doing that. But he's a fantastic resource. There's tons of workshops. You could become a master gardener, even as I think would possibly more feasible as a student than it is once you maybe are working a full-time job. And then, like I know Lawrence has the Common Ground program where they're creating incubator farm spaces. So there seems like there's a lot of volunteer opportunities, and I just can't stress enough, Lawrence is a fantastic community, and it really can be very easy for students to never get to really see what is going on outside of campus. And so, yeah, taking, like, to Courtney's point, as much opportunities to volunteer in sort of the greater municipality of Lawrence, making connections with people that aren't students, intergenerational. I would say a lot of the volunteer group probably it kind of leans more on the older retired age with the Master Gardener program, but the knowledge and the experience that some of these folks have really would be I think fantastic. I wish I would have had more opportunities to do those types of things when I was at KU. So that would be what I would encourage. Yeah.
100%. Becky, do you have anything to share? I was going to mention a couple of specific internships when everybody's done.
I mean, I don't have much. I was just going to say, don't think that you have to do one thing because that's what you've always done. And I know we've already kind of talked about that, like when I see resumes come through, it's like I very rarely look at educational backgrounds. I mean, I know a lot of people do, but like I am looking for a specific kind of person with a certain kind of passion. And so, just don't be afraid to, if you think you're underqualified, you might not be.
Well, and to your point there, Becky, I mean, Zach, if I'm remembering right, you said you had an undergrad in Spanish, and look at what you're doing now. So, like that, I think that's the perfect antidote right there for students who, you get maybe 2 to 3 years into your degree, and like, oh, I'm not sure about this, but I don't want to go change, or maybe I can't afford to, or whatever the reasoning may be. There is no such thing as being pot committed to, well, I've got to finish this now, or meaning you're locked into a career path. That's the very purpose of why we want to brought you all together. I do want to wrap us up because we are hitting our time. So I want to end with, what is y'all's favorite thing about a typical day in your work? It can be something really small, really big. Y'all have all talked about some of the wonderful things that you get to do in your job. So just hit us with on a real positive note. What's one of your favorite things about the work that you get to do?
My favorite thing is reconnecting people to plants and landscapes. I know that's my whole job, but maybe that's why it's my whole job. Telling plant stories and reintroducing people to the plants that have been part of our lives as a people for thousands and thousands of years. It's sort of like reintroducing you to an old friend. And everybody has a really good time, no matter how hot or cold it is or itchy. So it's my favorite part.
Courtney, you've personally done that with me, just so you know.
They're my favorite moments.
New relationships to plants with me, for sure.
I love it. It makes it all worthwhile.
That.
I appreciate it.
Did you want to mention your volunteer stuff?
Oh, super quick, and not even mine, but I just wanted to mention to the students listening that both Friends of the CAW and Johnson County Community College's Sustainability Department have both posted paid internships for students in the last week or two. Please apply. They don't get as much interest as you'd think they would. Don't feel like you're not good enough. They will teach you how to do everything, and they're amazing people.
That's great. My favorite part, I do a lot of different things from, like I mentioned, data, budget stuff, copywriting, but also creative things. And I always love the creative things because that's where my background is. But I also am responsible for managing product development. And I think that's really exciting. I get to decide what products we take to market, and that involves tasting a lot of things. So it's my favorite and least favorite part. I could care less about veggie burgers at this point after eating probably 1 million of them over the last 10 years. But we just got a new brand, which is called Free to Be, and we make chocolate sunflower butter cups. So I've been getting to eat a lot of chocolate.
It's
I
good.
know it's a little thing.
I get to sample as an insider.
I would say eating food is probably definitely a big part of my job as well, is eating all the local produce and just like, being really able to eat seasonably has been awesome, and seeing what's all available. My actual real favorite thing is that I've started a kids program. So being able to interact with kids and teach them about the local food system and see how excited they get. If you we have a scavenger hunt every Saturday, and those kids are just running around trying to find our little grape mascot, and they are so excited.
Yeah, I would say, one sort of component that I managed to carve out into my weekly routine is management of a quarter-acre garden space that's on the Johnson County. It's right next door to the health department. And it's called the Johnson County WIC Community Garden. So it provides. We donate all the produce that we grow in sort of a market garden style. We're very diversified. We're growing fruits and vegetables from basically beginning of March all the way through November. And all that produce gets donated to clients receiving nutritional assistance from the health department, primarily families that are in the Women, Infant, and Children program. So yesterday we were harvesting watermelons with some youngsters, and that definitely is it's a great photo Kodak moment, but it's also, I do sincerely enjoy getting to spend time with people out in the garden. That's a lot of fun.
For me, I would say the most satisfying aspect of my job is when I see other people talking about sustainability and it's not me. And so like this morning, I was in a meeting and with some city staff, and someone said, I was at a conference last week and they were talking about fuel alternatives. And so I want to get, folks together to talk about what that might look like across our departments. And it wasn't me. And so that was really exciting. And Zach, I'm so glad that you shared that, because I was on the planning team that helped start that WIC garden when I was at Johnson County. And so seeing things like that, where you're creating systems and then they grow and sustain beyond the time that you're there is super satisfying.
That's really
awesome.
Cool. I didn't know that.
Well, that's a perfect note to end on. Well, I want to thank you all so much for your time. For those who are watching, if you are interested in learning more about any of these industries, if you're wanting to learn what sort of jobs are out there available, if you're looking for help on your career journey, reach out to us at the University Career Center, career.ku.edu, and make an appointment with a career coach. We are here to serve you. And if you want to end up in a role like these awesome people here, that's what we're here for. Today's Beyond KU panel discussion is held in collaboration with the KU Common Book Program. This year's Common Book is Braiding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teaching of Plants by Robin Wall Kimmerer. We invite you to join the conversation with the KU and Haskell communities. Through this QR code, you can learn more about the Common Book and request a copy of Braiding Sweetgrass. You can also visit commonbook.ku.edu for more details about upcoming events.